Hello, Philip. Hello, Mr.
Hey, y'all. How's it going?
Hey,
Yeah,
folks.
This is a new backdrop from the one I'm used to seeing for you, Philip.
I'm moving all around. I'm a remote worker. I work wherever I can find. Right now, it happens to be behind the dining room table in front of a big window so I can get all this natural light on this beautiful face.
Yep.
Hey, there you
That's
go.
the
That's
normal
right.
way. Work wherever I can find. James, are you in a hotel somewhere? A hotel apartment?
Technically, yes. That is also where I live. I live in a service department inside of a hotel building, so I get to feel like I'm on vacation every day with these brown curtains that everyone would choose if they had the choice.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful. I love the inspiring artwork on the wall as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure it perks you up every day.
Yeah, it's in the same resolution as some of my talk was, so apologies, folks, about that.
I'm sure the carpet in there is grade A also. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it's a nice shade of brown or multiple shades of brown, probably.
It is. It is. And the cushions you can see behind me, they're also brown. So
Are you in Dubai, Abu Dhabi?
I'm in Dubai. Yeah. Yeah.
Olive must be, or those look like olive curtains to me. It must be.
Sure. Let's call it that.
Not
camel dung.
The color game. Wait, is this blue or is this gold?
Oh yeah,
that's circulated around before.
Yeah.
Dust storm, is that the haboob?
Haboob, yeah, there's a dust storm. Yeah, it's one of the best words in the world.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Oh, I can tell this is going to go swimmingly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've got some questions lined up, and I've got lots of questions too, but I'll let other people ask questions. James, here's one for you. Is it possible to use different linting for different NX libs? For example, if they type any in lib 1 but restrict it in lib 2, which any, you should use any for everything all the time anyway, so why would you ever want to restrict that? James, break that.
If you ever just write it, just write an alias in one place, type allow me through equals any, and then just override it one time and then use that everywhere else.
There you go.
No, don't do that. So yes, it's very possible. So one of the reasons that all the generators in NX land for every single preset generate ESLint files for the project itself is so that you can do exactly that. So we have the main config at the root, which sets up some scaffolding for things we know you definitely care about everywhere. For example, the Nx enforce module boundaries rule enforces stuff to do with the project graph or dependency graph that Philip was talking about. We know you need that everywhere. That's really important, we feel. So that's enabled in the root of your monorepo. But if you stick to only sticking stuff there that is really, really crucial everywhere, then you have the control at the project level to say, I want this rule in this config. So it's literally just a case of looking up the .eslint.rc.json file in the project root instead of the workspace root and applying the rule there. Obviously, you could be in a situation where you want to use a rule for half of your libs and not the other half. So in that case, you can leverage the tools directory, maybe create a directory in there for yourself called ESLint configs and set some ESLint RC files in there that are just used to extend from. So you can set up 10 to 15 rules that you always apply to React libs, for example, extend from those in the root of every React lib, but not at the root of the workspace, because then they won't apply to absolutely everything.
Mm-hmm. I'll throw in that on a client project right now for Narwhal, we do something very similar. We use scope folders, those grouping folders that I was talking about during my talk, to group libraries together. And so we have actually put those ESLint RC files in those grouping folders so that they stay really close to the libraries that they actually apply to, and everything in there extends from that grouping folder root.
It sounds like a good idea, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Philip, there was a question here about, are there any strategies, best practices around structuring libs into subfolders to get the most readable graph, or what's the relationship between how you've actually organized your libraries and the graph?
Yeah, so there, for this question, I wasn't sure if they were actually talking about subfolders inside of a library or putting libraries inside of a subfolder, like that grouping folder concept that I was talking about. So I'll answer both. Number one, if you're using subfolders within a library, that's really like your domain. We don't visualize any of that. We don't track any of that through the dependency graph. So, however you find best works for your particular team on organizing things within an actual library itself. That's kind of, and that'll vary from like framework to framework and team to team. So we don't necessarily have a ton of recommendations on how to organize inside the library itself. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, we got an update here that it is about that grouping folder. So I'll go into that. And so for that, what we tend to recommend is that grouping folder should be very related to, say the scope that these libraries sort of encompass. We tend to stay as flat as possible, not having a ton of nested grouping folders to contain libraries in. That's not to say don't do it, but don't start out with the assumption that you're going to have like a really deeply nested. I don't think going deeply nested does a lot of good for you, but having some really good grouping folders up top. If you start to get into too many libraries inside of a grouping folder, then that's probably the time to start breaking it down into smaller sort of sub grouping folders there.
Yep.
Are we hearing something?
There's a little bit of crackle as you went on. We're just having whatever tools we're using are not playing well with audio today. But I could hear everything you said. I wasn't.
All right. And again, like reach out in Slack, reach out on Twitter. Anytime you want to talk about this, I love talking about workspace organization. Actually, I think it's one of those once you start like throwing stuff around just anywhere in your workspace, I think that's where you really start to fall down. If you have like a pretty good game plan to begin with, and then you are willing to adapt as changes come through and as you meet other challenges, then I think you're going to be well on your way to success in NX.
Cool. And folks, feel free to throw more questions in. I'm trying to keep an eye on the Slack and the.
One thing I said I'd answer in this was the reason I didn't appear for most of my talk.
Yes.
And the reason for that is I came very close to having to pull out of this because I had 2 lots of wisdom tooth surgery. I was in absolute agony. And so my talk is a slightly different style of just introducing it yesterday or the day before and outroing it then. But in the middle was many, many hours of recording small sound bites, which didn't sound like I was in too much pain, and then stitching it together. So that was the reason why I couldn't, I looked incredibly disheveled, no haircuts, no shaving, nothing. So I looked like I should have been living under a bridge. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I wasn't on camera.
It was surprisingly coherent, knowing that.
That's good. Maybe a little low energy, but hopefully it's clear. That's the main thing. And given it was used as an audio description for a lot of that, it seems like it was at least clear. So that's
the best part about these pre-recorded talks is like seeing the varying energy levels. Beginning, hey folks, great to get started at the end. So thank you. I hope
it's slow decline during the talk there. It starts hot and levels out as it goes on.
It also depends on like which number of like re-recording you're on. Like how many times have I tried to get through this and the energy level just like keeps dipping and dipping and dipping.
Philip, it got static again. I think Jeff will take you out and put you back in. He's not going to kill you. He's going to remove you.
I've got so much space now. Oh, I was going to stretch while I had all that space.
There you go.
Test it, Philip. Let's hear it.
Is that any better?
It got way worse.
It got way worse.
I have passed the crackling on to Philip.
Brandon sounds great now.
The crackling cooties is very strange.
It traveled thousands of miles to visit me.
It must be something with StreamYard or how we're using it. Having issues.
Yeah, Yeah, like I said, I ran into the same thing. I was going to use this opportunity to request a new M1 MacBook whenever they release those next month.
Who's your
But I
manager?
think
Not me.
it's just well I'll talk to Isaac and Victor, and we'll see who can make that happen.
Hmm.
Because we definitely want to.
The key with Victor is
audio.
if you make something annoying to him or like something he has to think about, he'll just say, "Fine, do whatever." So that's the key.
That's how I got a new microphone. Victor was like, "Hey, I got this great microphone. It sounds great. You should get it too." And I was like, "Okay." So I guess we're getting a new microphone now. And then that same microphone I found out has been recommended throughout the
Yeah, it started
other
with James,
people in
actually.
Narwhal. I think James is the one that started this whole business. So
James
Yeah.
is the idiot that didn't create an affiliate link before recommending it to 10 other people who immediately bought it.
You know, we were on some client call with James, and he sounded so much better than me and Victor, and we couldn't have that. So Victor ordered it, and he told me he ordered this microphone, and so I ordered it from a place that I could get it a day sooner than Victor, and paid a little extra. I had it before Victor.
Pro tip that I learnt from the interwebs after buying it. This is the Shure MV7 in case anyone's interested. And the SM7B is the Big Daddy mic, the classic studio recording mic. Thriller was recorded on it, etc. But you basically have to be an audio engineer to make it work properly. Whereas the MV7 was the one they introduced during the pandemic for people that were starting a podcast in their bedroom, where you just plug and play into a USB interface. It also supports the XLR, but it has a USB interface. So you just plug and play. I know nothing about it. So it works really, really well. But the pop filter on the SM7B, the Big Daddy mic, is a better pop filter because it's longer, further away from the input, and they're the same size. So you can buy the pop filter from the SM7B and replace your MV7 pop filter, and it's very cheap for the pop filter. But
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
protection against plosives.
Yeah, Victor probably isn't watching right now, so by the time I have it, he'll be none the wiser, and he'll say, "How's your popping so much more pleasant?"
But yeah, it's a bit of a rabbit hole. Where, like, I don't want to become an expert in these things, but in trying to research, like, what can I do to improve what I've got, that was one of the random tips on maybe a subreddit somewhere. And yeah, I noticed a little bit of a difference, I think, in the pop filter. So there you go. We've deviated quite a long way from NX and what we discussed.
Everyone here, you know what? It's a good investment to be good on video calls, especially with us all working remotely.
True.
There's good research showing you appear more competent if you have high quality audio and video and on your call. So, and
no. What does that mean for me?
We've done better now.
Well, yeah, randomly that fixed it somehow.
Am I okay? I flipped off the echo cancellation in StreamYard. Okay. I don't know if that helped at all, but
oh, interesting. Yeah,
maybe a bunch of bees flew out of my microphone too. I guess that might have.
What
helped.
a coincidence!
Yes, I like it.
Wild
cancellation. So, Brandon, maybe you try that off. Maybe that was the.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought mine was already unchecked, but I have switched setups altogether. So, but this one seems to be working fine. So we're gonna roll with it.
All post processing is evil, in my opinion. Never trust software to fix things that your hardware.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back over the previous videos and just re-record snippets of my voice and just kind of overlay that into the part where I was had the robot voice. So.
Totally reasonable thing to do.
Thank you.
In the final 15 seconds, somebody asked, like, what I think in Philip's talk, maybe there were some data access libs, and somebody was asking, like, what do you use that for, or what's a convention around that? Either of you could answer it, but somebody wondered what you typically put in that.
Yeah, as long as I don't sound like I have bees anymore, I can tackle that one. So with a data access library, you're typically looking at anything that involves like server access. So in Angular, this is going to be your services that consume HTTP client and actually make those requests out to the server. In other frameworks, you might be using fetch or some just some functions. Interfaces for those server responses might belong there as well. It's following up on some of the other threads that were with that question. rather than a data access library, you might have something that's like a state library that actually encapsulates your server access along with any state management related to that. And so what you actually export out of that library for other folks to use is just a some sort of API for getting that data, and they don't have to know exactly how it came through. So those are the sorts of things that we begin to see in data access. The other thing that you might see is folks who want to put like a facade on top of a component, where a component is responsible for interaction with the template and then passing those on to a facade that actually handles the behavior. That facade might pull in that data access library to actually handle the data access, so you might split it up that way. I've also seen folks like use a data access library and a state library because they want to separate those two concerns. Maybe your state management actually shouldn't be that concerned about where the data is coming from, whether that's coming from an HTTP call, is that a WebSocket call? A lot of it all, I hate to pull in like the typical senior engineer answer of it depends, but it 100% depends on how you want to break up that logic. Right? Yeah, that's how we make our money. Like call in Narwhal and I'll, pay us a lot of money, and I'll say, that depends.
Yeah, it's a reasonable amount of money.
But give me an afternoon, and I'll try to come up with an answer for your context, and I can give you. It depends on X, Y, and Z. In which direction do you want to go? So.
Use code James for 1% off your Narwhal contract.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Because I forgot the affiliate code for my mic. I'm now giving out Narwhal affiliate codes.
Yeah. You get plenty of kickbacks already.
And in case it wasn't there was a slight ambiguity in the question as well. In case it was clear, Philip wasn't referring to having kind of a lib called data access, but data access is a very common prefix for libs. And within those data access libs, they might all look subtly different from one another. They don't have to, every data access type of lib doesn't have to follow a formula in the same way that you have feature dash, and not all of those features will look remotely similar inside, but they're roughly aimed in that ballpark of that's the concern they're looking after. Mm-hmm. That might be me reading too much into the way the question was framed, but just in case people were thinking you have a data access lib, which every other lib uses if it wants to make an HTTP call, that's not the case.
And
yes, absolutely.
That's a good point too, and a thing you could use the tagging system to enforce, to say like, we don't want our presentation components to import anything that's tagged as a data access library.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for offering my 2 cents, but and underneath that just uses ESLint. So look, tie back into James.
Yeah. And to tie it back to the dependency graph as well, in case anybody missed my tip in there with all of Philip's examples, because he was creating scripts against the dependency graph, he's responsible for invoking them. Nx isn't actually involved in the invocation of those scripts, so he had to use create project graph async. But if you are using them in an executor, for example, if you've watched some of the other talks of this conference and you're inspired to create executors, you would use a different function in there. You would use read cached project graph, which is a synchronous function, because Nx is invoking your executor. And before it does that, it has built the project graph already for you. So if you were to use create project graph async in that context, you'd be doubling work for no reason. And that also applies to lint rules, because lint rules are synchronous and you can't use an async function inside of an ESLint rule. So in that case, if you wanted, for example, to write a lint rule on the project graph, like we do with the module boundaries check, then you would need to use that function read cached project graph. Yeah. And again, as long as Nx has run a command like NxLint, NxBuild, NxTest, it's already created the project graph. And so you can safely access that synchronously after the fact.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, there's you shared some code snippets in the Slack channel for anyone who wants to see what he's talking about. Again,
yeah, but obviously in all of Philip's examples, he's used exactly the right approach, because it's a different use case. But just in case people wanted to take that concept and combine it with one of the other themes of the conference, that's one subtlety about accessing the project graph.
Great. All right, we're gonna stop it there. Thank you both for your great. I don't want to say practical talks, but that's what I am going to say. Like both very pragmatic talks, like things people can use right away. which I'm sure people will take a lot from that back to what they're doing. So thank you both for the presentations and for the panel.